What is up, Honey Badger Nation? This is John Kitchens, and welcome to episode 174 of Expert Mentors Live. Have Amanda Cruz on with us today. What's up?
Hey, John. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Very cool. Well, I know things are hectic, and you're running a million miles an hour, jumping in to hang out with us and hang out with the Honey Badger Nation.
Yes, of course. I'm excited to be here, and I would make my time available to you anytime.
I love it. That's awesome. So I would love for you, Honey Badger Nation is almost at 10,000 strong now. So it's just crazy to even think about that. Kendra and I were chatting a little bit last night, and, EXP's at, 73,000. We're almost at 10,000. So it's pretty cool to have a large impact, our community to what EXP is doing across the globe. So it's just fun. And like I said, I appreciate you jumping in. I would love for you to give a little backstory about yourself. So many honey badgers, it's hard to be able to connect with all of our rock stars that we have. And, that's the whole goal and intent of these Expert Mentors Live series, is to tap into the collective horsepower that we have within the Honey Badger Nation and, commit it to bringing value and solid topics every week. And today's going to be no different, but really love for you to give a little background, a little story about yourself.
Sure. So I actually started this business 4 years ago. I came in the middle of getting divorced. I became a single mother, like essentially overnight. And my background was in nursing, but for the 4 years that, since I became a parent, I was a stay-at-home mom. I was fortunate enough to live a good lifestyle, and I knew I couldn't get that being with nursing. So I literally Googled one day, how do I make $100,000 a year? And like real estate kept coming up. I was like, you know what? It's a 2-week course. I'll take it. I kind of know how to sell houses, or not sell houses, but like I get the basics of selling. So I took the real estate course, and I knew that if I was going to be successful, I had to align with who I saw in my area that was a successful realtor. Mm-hmm. So I seeked out, the top 2 agents in my area. I eventually ended up aligning with one of them. When you first start out, you have nothing. So I had absolutely nothing. And, at a point in my divorce, it got really bad, and I was on food stamps. And I remember picking up the phone and fighting with social services because they cut my food stamps, and, whatever. They're like, it's a 45-minute hold. And I said, you know what? Like, I could be picking up my phone, calling people, and trying to get business. And from that day on, you know what? I did away with the food stamps, and I picked up the phone, and I just cold called my way to building the business that I have today. I outproduced the company that I outgrew the pond at the company I was at. I was previously at Keller Williams, at the top office that was in New Jersey. So I really outgrew that, and I started seeking, how do I grow bigger? How do I grow into what I actually want to be? And I found EXP, and I had interviewed about 9 other brokerages at the time. And it just so happened, my good friend Joe Oz reached out to me while I was interviewing the other brokerages. And he really laid out EXP for me in a way that no one did. And so it was a no-brainer. I aligned with him. And he gave me the systems and put me onto Honey Badgers, where everyone is sharing what they know. So I took my business from, good, doing decent, to a happy, being happy, to this whole other level where I now run a team. I have 4 agents on my team. We've done a tremendous amount of production last year. And, this year we're looking to close at least 100 units. So, it's possible with what we have in our pipeline right now. And, essentially getting divorced, becoming a single mom propelled me into this whole beautiful place in my life where I am now. And I've become the successful businesswoman, and I'm here to share my secrets.
I love it. That's awesome. What is for you, was it, sometimes we can, people, the human tendencies, we can just slip in and, poor woeful me and slip into that victim mentality and, look at all the things that's happening around. And was it really that defining moment on the phone on hold? And you're like, what am I doing? I'm fighting for food stamps. And
It
like,
was it.
at what point was it like, man, I just got to take control of my life?
That was it. I was like, you know what? Like, and listen, I had been married to someone who made a lot of money, ran a very successful commodity brokerage, and he just was not giving me a dime of anything, no temporary support. I mean, I learned so much about getting divorced through my divorce because I had to go through so many motions and so many different terms. And, my lawyer was really wonderful. So she really educated me through the whole process. But I realized like I will be at his mercy if I'm relying on his child support and alimony. Or I can just take over complete control of my finances and have complete control over my life and how I'm going to live it. And I just said, F it. But yes, that time when I was fighting on the phone, not fighting on, well, yes, fighting on the phone with social services, that was really a really, big defining time. So I'm like, who am I? I'm not like what you said. Like I was like, I can't have a victim mentality. I'm a victor. And it's funny you say that because I would say it every day. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. And I would just get up and I would hustle.
I love that. I've been really paying a lot of attention lately to, that internal drive. Anything on the external is secondary to what happens on the internal. And we've talked a lot about, the only thing that we have absolute control over is our mindset and, our thinking. And so I'm always curious to, what that spark is for people that have an insane drive for whatever it is, for whatever success is to them. But we all, it's, the Ed Milet that, hey, we're always trying to make somebody proud, but I also like the flip side, which is, I always say Ed's dark side is Andy Frisella, and Andy has, I'm trying to prove somebody wrong. And I think it's the combination, and the prove somebody wrong is always the ignition. So I'm always curious,
Ooh, you know what? You did touch on something. That was another igniting factor because I remember like my ex-husband telling me like you'll be nothing without me. And I was
Mm,
like, oh, I will be something without you, like, and, also I had to show up for my daughter, like I had to put her through preschool. I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't. And so for me to come up with $1,200 a month for preschool, at a time when I had absolutely nothing was very, very, very difficult. And I was like, you know what? I remember the first time I made that payment when he stopped paying, and I was just like, I'm a boss bitch. Like, I'm over here paying the entire tuition, okay? And, whatever. Now there's more where that came from. So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, through a hard time, uh, sometimes you have to go through a hard time to become the best version of yourself, right? So,
yeah.
yeah, that was
And
definitely one of those times.
yeah, and I love that. I mean, you've got a great story, very inspiring story for a lot of people out there. And, I think, get into a situation where we feel comfortable, but I appreciate you sharing. And for everybody listening in, just to kind of clarify, I mean, she said it right there, right? Purpose is, her daughter. And then the ignition was her ex. Just those little things like that, are okay, right? Sometimes we hear, you got to stay positive. No, sometimes we need things to ignite us, to light us up and not ever forget. And I always tell everybody, when you have that ignition, you need to print it out. You need to put it on your computer. You need to put it on your phone saver. You need to put it everywhere, because it's that constant reminder. When you don't want to do something, you see that it keeps the fire burning strong. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that with everybody. And so let's kind of transition into, really the topic that we really want to put out here for the Honey Badger Nation. And it really is around selling a divorce home. And, there's ins and outs, there's do's and don'ts. There's certain ways to go about it and things that you have to be aware of. So I would love for you to kind of start unpacking that for us.
So, all right. So, working with people who are getting divorced, there's a lot of emotions. And when you go on that first appointment or you get that first phone call, you'll know who the person that's hanging on to the home and hanging on to the marriage is. And you'll know who that person is just checked out and is ready to sell the home. You have to recognize that, because the tone that you take with each person is going to have to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to take a firmer approach with the person that is essentially hanging on to the marriage, but the marriage is over and they need to sell the home. And oftentimes there's a court order that this home needs to be sold. So you need to firmly and kindly, get them on board. And then the person that has kind of checked out, you need to show them kindness and compassion too, because either way, this is a very difficult time in their life. With that, I make the point of keeping most of my communication in writing. If I have a verbal conversation with one party, I will then text that just about verbatim, the best I can, to the other party or email it to them. It's very important to not play favorites in this, because people definitely can tell when you're playing favorites, especially in a divorce. Emotions are heightened, intuition is higher. The thing that's also important about working with divorce clients is you have to be extremely resourceful. So I have, an accountant. I have the family lawyer that if they're not handling that deal, I have that person where I can go and ask them a question. You may need access to a therapist, like who's a good therapist? How do I get through this? There's divorce coaches. So I'm part of the National Association of Divorce Professionals. There's a divorce coach in my group. Just like there's real estate coaches and there's spiritual coaches. Some people need a divorce coach to stay on course. It's a very difficult time, no matter if you're happy about it or sad about it. The other thing is when people are getting divorced, no matter how amicable it may be, they are huge on privacy. So these are the people that oftentimes don't want to sign in their yard. And you really have to keep that confidentiality. Like, you shouldn't be talking about these deals with your friends, with, other people in the business. Like, you definitely are not disclosing it to the buyers that are coming through. You don't want anyone to know the delicacy of the situation, because buyers will take advantage if they know that this person needs to sell. Even in this crazy market, people will try to take advantage of the sellers. So you have to make sure that you keep that they're getting divorced very close to your chest. If you do it right, listen, you're going to get 3 deals out of it, if not at least 2. And those are people that are going to want to, they usually go into 2 rentals. Most people aren't buying a home right after the divorce. So, in a year from now, that's, as long as you treat them well, they're going to come back to you to buy their next homes. They may move into another marriage. They may move on with single life and buy bachelorette pad. But the most important thing, and I can't stress it enough, is extremely clear, concise, written communication, because people will go back to each other and they'll argue with each other. No, the realtor told me this. No, the realtor told me that. And, they could just both pick up the phone and, all right, this is what Amanda said. And it's copy and paste, copy and paste. There's no difference between either written communication.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's so key. You said something. I'm listening to a new book, which I'm gonna give to everybody at Kitchen Table. Was recommended. I'm not going to give away the title just yet, but it really, that was the number one driving factor. And we all know this company, we use it every day, but the number one driving factor was we have to start with the customer, in this situation, the client experience. We have to start with, what is the experience that we want both of these people to have at the end of the day? And it's just like you said, if you really do this right, and that's kind of things what we're talking about, right? Understanding the fundamentals, understanding the basics, but there is a right and wrong to this. And I think the big thing is that if we think about the overall, how we want them both to feel, experience at the end, when this is all said and done, and think 12, 24, 36, 48, 60 months down the road. And I think that's the hard thing, Amanda, is that most agents have a hard time thinking back past the next commission check, let alone, how do I want this experience to unfold over the next 3, 4, 5 years? because if you do this right in what you're sharing, I mean, you could have an exponential impact on them and the rest of their, because think about it, most, I don't know the statistics, but you may know this, is that, the divorce, they move into a new home, they start another relationship, they end up getting remarried, moving into another home. So you look at the LTV, the lifetime value of this one interaction. And if you handle it correctly, they're always going to remember that. They're always going to, remember how you made them feel through a very challenging time in their life.
Absolutely. And going to the experience, more often than not, one person in the marriage handles most of the stuff, right? So for you to be that resource to the person that hasn't been handling the finances, the, estate planning, whatever it may be, I have probably everyone you could need. And I've gone through trial and error with finding the right and the wrong people. So, some people need a financial advisor. Some people have lived in their home for 25 years and they're each walking away with $250,000. What do they do with it? I don't know, but I have a wonderful financial advisor that I could set them up with. I have two from my National Association Divorce Professional Group. I like
How do you go about introducing these key, really big on the whole life team? And so what you're bringing is a resource that they haven't even thought about. How are you introducing these key characters into this situation? Like, how do you go about introducing it to them? How do you lay it out? How do you, without saying you guys need to talk to a divorce coach? How do you go about and kind of present this to be able to, not lose that rapport, not lose, the experience? Because we all know this, especially in this game. I mean, real estate's mainly relationship driven, and one bad review can spoil over 100 positives.
Sure.
So, how are you introducing characters into this process?
When I hear the need for it, I suggest it. So if someone sounds like they're really all over the place with their divorce, I'll say, have you ever heard of a divorce coach? And more often than not, they say no. And I'll say, you know what? I know this wonderful woman, and it might not hurt to just give her a call and see what she can do for you. It usually comes from questions from the client because I'm always the middleman. So recently I had a client reach out to me and they're like, well, I don't know what to do with all my money. I don't know how I'm going to get hit with the taxes. I can't give tax information. So I said, do you have an accountant? No. Okay, wonderful. I have an accountant that deals with a lot of divorces. I think that you should give him a call. So I never force anyone into it, but I am always listening to my clients' needs, wants, complaints. And I'm thinking, how can I help them? I mean, I certainly can't give them legal advice. I've had people come back and ask me about child support because they know that I do a lot of divorces. I don't know anything about child support, but I know a wonderful family law attorney that can break it down for you. Why don't you give him a call? I have his cell phone number. If you tell him that I referred you to him, he'll have a very honest conversation with you. So that's how I do it. I never force anyone into it, but if it sounds like they need help, I'm gonna show them where to find it.
So sounds like, you and everybody kind of listening in, if, is trying to, if you end up in your career in this situation, you've been in the game long enough, you're going to end up in this situation, is that you've got to do a really, really good job at listening. Do you find that to be like, man, I've got to go in here and listen twice as hard, and just to, because like you said, everything you'll be able to tell the ins and outs and kind of know the dynamics, especially if somebody's new getting into this situation. You've had enough experience, trial and error, to be able to see that. In fact, I think it's kind of a, maybe bouncing around here a little bit, but for you had that experience, that fire, got into the business. But when your career, did you immediately go after divorce situations, or did a few situations like that just land in your lap?
So what's interesting is while I was going through my divorce, my first two clients were divorce clients that I met at open houses. And I was like, I can relate. So I just immediately was able to understand the dynamics of both of those relationships. I still have actually a wonderful relationship with the first divorcing couple, who I've helped the mother, the woman's mother buy a house and everything. So it just so happened, and I learned a little bit more from those. And then there came a point in my divorce that the marital home needed to be listed, and my realtor, I didn't want anything to do with it, but my realtor was very wonderful, and I learned about the communication from that guy. And I said, how can I do this better? Because a lot of times when you're getting divorced, I was the spouse that like was just kind of like, my husband handled everything and I didn't know anyone. I had no connections whatsoever at the time. I just didn't. Um, and that's when I realized, I'm like, you know what? If this realtor would have just been like a little bit more resourceful for me with the questions that I had, instead of just giving me like an, I don't know, like find out on your own sort of thing, I probably would have loved them a little bit more. But I saw that there's definitely a need to be resourceful, especially in these divorce situations, because there's a lot of moving parts and most people don't know what they're doing. We don't get divorced many times in our life. We're not expected to know exactly what we're doing. So if I could help someone put the pieces together, that fulfills me. And I'm talking like I have resources for people that are amicable, and I have resources for people that are in awful situations. So if someone needs a domestic violence resource, I have it. Like I know where to guide them to. And I really pride myself, on being able to help people.
So somebody's getting into kind of the business, and I know you shared there's groups and associations to get plugged into. What what are some of the ways to kind of keep a consistent flow of leads and opportunities coming your way? What are some key relationships? I really feel like this is hard to go out and, hey, I specialize in helping divorced couples sell their homes. What's kind of the way to almost align relationship driven wise to be able to be a resource out there to be able to handle these type of situations?
Sure. So you should get friendly with family law attorneys. They're going to be your best resource for divorcing couples. Now, what happens is usually if the couple's not getting along, what will be filed is called a motion. And each side will recommend one or two, either, husband, wife will recommend, 1 to 2 attorneys that they would rather work with. And as your names gets put more into these motions in the same county, because divorces happen at the county, not at the town level, the judges will start seeing your name. So it's Amanda Cruz, Amanda Cruz, Amanda Cruz, and it's like, oh, Amanda Cruz might be good, so we'll order that Amanda Cruz is going to be the realtor, right? So that's one way. Family law attorneys are super important. The next thing is financial planners. They are really in, because more often than not, one person has already went to the financial planner and said, hey, I'm getting divorced, we need to sell the house. How do I save myself from tax hits? How do I protect myself on this end? By the way, do you know a good realtor? So you have to know the financial advisors. And there's a lot of National Association of Divorce chapters. That's what I'm a part of. So certainly Google that, National Association of Divorce Professionals. It's hard to get in. Like you really have to strike when they're missing the residential realtor. For my group, there's 3 residential realtors. It took me almost a year to get into that. So, you do an interview, you go, you do a meet and greet, and you have to prove yourself that you're worth being in the group and that you're going to help these people, because it's a big referral circle. So I think the third person that would be, I don't know if I said this, but accountants too. So people are going to get their finances in order, and hey, by the way, I need to sell my house. The accountant is most likely telling them you got to sell the house. Do you know a good realtor? Sure, Amanda Cruz, she's wonderful.
Say I'm new, maybe I haven't developed those relationships yet, those key relationships. What are some best practices, do's and don'ts that you would recommend to agents that are like, man, I agree, I need to develop some of these key relationships? What are some of the do's and don'ts that you would recommend, starting to kickstart those key relationships?
The do's, provide value. Like most of these people, yes, they already have a relationship with the realtor, especially if they've been in the game for a long time. But I think a good thing is find someone that's your age. I mean, if you're a 19-year-old realtor, you don't know a family law attorney. But pick up the phone and call the law offices nearby, the family law offices. Offer to take one of the attorneys out to lunch. Hey, I'm a new realtor in the area. I'd love to build a relationship with you. Who doesn't like to be taken out to lunch or out for coffee? A lot of people won't go out on a limb and do that. The don'ts, don't just cold email people and expect them to read it and care that you emailed them, because how many emails do we get a day that we just pass over?
Sure.
Like, you have to actually build a face-to-face relationship with these people and show that, like, you know a little bit something about this area.
I love that. Yeah, just it's the thing is that you've got to reach out and add value. And I know for us in Lawton, being a smaller market, 100,000 in the county, kind of at the time, it's a little bit bigger than that now. And, we leveraged market statistics at the time. We leveraged market data and being able to provide that. And that was kind of our value. And we leveraged our key relationships to spark other key relationships. And, one of our top relationships was with our banker. And at the time, he's president of the region of the bank, the bank that we banked at, but he was really big in the chamber. He was kind of head or president of the chamber, and he kind of encouraged us to get plugged in, and we did with him, and he opened a bunch of doors for us and a bunch of relationships. And then so us as agents, how we provided value back was we kept them in tune to what was going on in the market and market statistics. And we knew we had an impact, Amanda, when the bankers would go into loan committee meetings with our market reports. We were like,
Mm-hmm.
what? It's having that kind of impact? And we pissed a bunch of builders off because they would turn down builder loans based upon the data we were providing. And so we had a big target on our back, and
Wow.
we tried to play nice. We tried to sponsor, the home building association. We tried to really get in there and be like, hey guys, we're just trying to help the community. We don't need to overbuild. But yeah, we painted a big target. My whole point is that you've got to, it's just exactly what you said, is that when we go into these relationships, we got to go in to give, not go in to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And, another piece of advice is, if they allow you, ask them, like, is it okay if I leave my information in your office? If you work with title or mortgage lender, co-market with them, got a little trifold, and, put, three facts that you should, consider while getting divorced and needing to sell your home. That's something for people to take home. And it's just a little bit of piece of marketing to stay top of mind to their clients.
Oh, I love that. So being able to provide assets for them that they can hand to clients if they come into that situation that has your
Mhm.
brand and do's and don'ts, checklist, things you need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. Also, maybe even with these key relationships, do you find, you've got these professions that are earning, six figures plus, that are looking for investment opportunities, maybe even trying to, talk to them about, hey, is real estate part of your, long-term investment strategy? If so, I would love to maybe be able to put some opportunities in front of you if I knew what you were looking for. Could be another value add.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is wonderful. Funny enough, my financial advisor sent me a ton of deals, divorced, not divorced, his parents. Um, I've rented out, he has a gorgeous high rise at the shore, and I've rented that out. So I think we might be selling it next year. But I really try to show up for them, and I make sure that I'm giving them business just as much, or trying to give them just as much business as they're giving me.
Kind of flipping back into the conversation and the relationship with the couple that's going through the situation. Do you feel that sometimes you've got to remind them and keep them on course, keep them on track of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, reminding them of the outcome?
Yes, absolutely. Selling your home is emotional and stressful. Getting divorced, emotional and stressful. So I'm the captain of the ship, right? Like, I'm in control of the whole operation, and we're keeping the waves of emotions in line. We're going to land. We're going to close. I'll fight for you. I'll make sure that you're getting a very phenomenal deal, that you're being treated fairly, that you're not giving up the house just because you have to. And I establish, that position when I first meet with them, and I'm providing my value to them. And I tell them this is step by step what we're going to do. Now, bumps always come up. They come up in any transaction. One person's going to flip out more than the other. It's usually the one that's holding on to the house and doesn't want to sell. And trust me, they might kick and scream all the way to the closing table. But you just have to keep your mind to them, like, we're closing on the home, you're getting a great deal, and you're on to the next chapter of your life. You don't have to think about this house ever again after we close. Easier said than done, but you have to keep it a business transaction. Otherwise, the emotions will completely overrule you. And as their realtor, you're their advisor, you're their guider, and you cannot step away from the steering wheel of the ship at all.
Yeah, I love that, and I can see, it's just one of the things I think being a true expert, and really being, navigating this ship through the rough waters, is that you've got to get real clear on the front end of what the goal is and not let them lose sight of it. Because as we know, in any situation, sellers usually have selective amnesia, and that's why we want to get real clear on the goal. Because when the train starts to come off the track a little bit and they're leaving the reservation, we've got to reel them back in.
Yeah.
And we've got to remind them of what the objective is, what is the outcome. And so I think that's where you've got to be that calming force in the whirlwind that they're experiencing. And don't wish that the experience you went through, but I think that gave you what they're feeling. And
100%.
Yeah. Being able to
Yeah,
feel
it's
them.
hard. I mean, listen, no one wants to leave a house that they put so much time, money, memories into. I think the memories are the hardest thing to leave at the house, and you have to consider the kids, especially if they have kids. No showings when the kids are home. Make sure they're at school, after school activities, time block. I use showing time, so I'm big on time blocking with that, because the kids don't need to be involved any more than whatever they're involved in. The last thing I want is a child leaving their childhood home, checking out their room, checking out the play set in the backyard. And that's traumatizing. So you have to be very delicate around the children. Make sure they're never home for anything.
Would you say the kiddos is probably the hardest part of the whole process?
The kids are the hardest part, and that's a lot of the feedback I get from my sellers. This is very hard on the kids. They don't want to leave the home. And I learned from one of my sellers, like, please just don't have any showings when my kids are home. I only want it during school hours. And so from that point on, I said, that's what we're doing. Showings during school hours, or if they're at activities. So kids, they're resilient, but it hurts. So got to handle it with white gloves.
Yeah, and especially we know the impact, especially kiddos, 7 and younger, they're still, these experiences are shaping, shaping them in the future. And so I love that. I would say just that has to be just part of your conversation with them, is that, understanding the kids age. And I think just putting it out there, just saying, hey, we know this is going to be tough on the kids. So what we like to do is, no showings, only when the kids are in school, or, if it's during summertime or whatever. It's like, hey, this home should move fast, but we're going to ask that you guys disappear for the weekend or whatever, as you kind of navigate through it. I think if you take the lead on that, I think that's going to have, one, it'll help. I mean, I can't see how it wouldn't have an
It's
exponential impact.
appreciated. It's appreciated that, you're not just there to sell their house. You're really taking the whole picture into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not obviously this is not a sexy, fun topic, but like I said, if you're in the business long enough, you're going to fall into this situation and you can mess it up in a hurry. So, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing, the insights, do's and don'ts. Are there any couple little nuggets or things that, as these situations come into, your site as an agent in the marketplace, are there anything else that we want to, leave everybody, especially these honey badgers, with to make sure that they really nail this the right way?
I mean, I guess what I would leave them with is just when you get into this, clear, concise communication all the way. And when you're looking for the business, if this is something you want to break into, know the terms of divorces, know the process of the divorce. Do not give legal advice. If it sounds like it's legal advice, tell them to advise with their lawyer. Build a relationship with both attorneys if two attorneys are involved. And that's it.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you nailed it. It really is. And understand, your job is to be the captain of the ship through the rough waters and keep everybody calm and on the
Yes.
same page.
And there actually is one thing that I also came up with a system on my team. So I'm the listing specialist on my team. And I have two buyers agents that have been with me, one for the last 6 months, one's for the last year, and they're very good. So husband and wife, once the home is under contract, husband goes with whoever personality matches for my buyer's agent one, then the next personality match to number two. And this way, the divorcing couple really feels like they're onto a fresh new start. So they're no longer with me. I'm just selling the house. They're working with the two buyer's agents to buy their new homes and close out one chapter and start a new one.
I love that. I can see where if you try to handle even now the buyers now, I could see where because they're going to try to wedge and they're going to try to play favoritisms. It's just human behavior.
That's the thing, right? So you never want that opportunity for someone to be like, well, Amanda likes me more. Amanda said this when you weren't around. So that's also a big part of the reason why I do it too, because I don't want to get caught in the middle of it. And there's just too many conversations that could be had, that could be misconstrued maybe. And also, they don't want me they don't want me to be able to have the ability to share all of their business with the next person. Some people are very private and don't want the other person to know where they're going. Some people are very amicable and tell each other everything. But either way, it's best to just send them out with two separate buyer's agents and on to new things.
I love that. I think that's a golden nugget right there, as everybody that listening throughout this conversation is that right there, because you nailed it, right? Even we were talking about in the beginning is that you've got to be transparent in both parties. Like you cannot let them play or think that they have favoritism. They need to know that whatever they tell you, the other party is going to know exactly everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's absolute gold. Amanda, thank you so much. Jumping in here, particular, niche in their business. I know for you, it's about a third of your business. It's not 100%. And right. I think that's a golden nugget, right? Hey, we have multiple pillars that drive revenue, lead sources, and things for our business. This can be a particular niche for the business. It's not going to be 100% of your business. And so I think it's gold. I think every agent should have a particular niche that they really, go deep on and know the ins and outs, know the relationships, know all the do's and don'ts. And I think this is a good one. This is a real good one.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. If people want to dive a little bit deeper with you, maybe get a little more clarity, what's the best way to be able to connect with you?
So wonderful. My email address is amanda@theamandacruzgroup.com. And if you wanted to shoot me a text, my number is 732-991-8543.
Awesome. If you guys run into a divorce situation, you haven't had the experience diving in, get a guide, get somebody that can kind of mentor you through the finish line. Nobody better than Amanda. So make sure you guys, reach out. Don't try to navigate that ship the first couple times by yourself. You need to have that guide that's going to be able to navigate.
Gotta have the captain.
Gotta have the captain. Sure. Awesome. Amanda,
All right.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Thanks, John.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.